Hello everybody, Infernape Shinjo here. Welcome to today's video, and I'm not going to waste as much time as I did in the Hitoribochi video, which if you've seen that, then you know today I'm going to be talking about another anime that I watched from the spring season, and today is going to be Senryu Girl. So without any further ado, let's get into the story. Senryu Girl revolves around Nanako Yukishiro, who is not very good with verbal communication and instead communicates by using Senryu, another form of haiku. The show really isn't that deep outside of that. That's basically just the whole show. It's the characters involved in the show that make it all the more worth watching. So, let's get into those characters. I already mentioned briefly about Nanako, and she's basically communicating through haiku for the whole show. Haiku is splitting up 17 syllables over 3 lines. The most common way that I know it is 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and 5 syllables again. And although the fact that Nanako doesn't speak might make the show kind of strange, it actually doesn't, because she always keeps little tablet things which are apparently called tanzaku. She always keeps them around and writes whenever she wants to speak, and while she's holding up the haiku that she's created, her voice actor, Kana Hanazawa, actually speaks out the lines that she's saying when she writes. So at the same time, Nanako doesn't speak, but her voice actress does, which I find that very cool. That kind of slips past the whole Nanako not talking, but at the same time still needing a voice actress for her. The main male for the show is Eiji Busujima, which, like Sunao, like I discussed in the Hitoribochi video, is an ex-delinquent. Even though with Sunao's case, people thought that she was a delinquent, but with Eiji's case, he actually is. And through random happenstance, when he was in a fight, he makes a haiku and decides to join like a free literature haiku sort of club, and that's where he meets Nanako at. A lot of comedy derived from him just revolves around the fact that he used to be a delinquent and his eyes make him intimidating to other people, especially if you're not used to being around him. And at the same time, even with his whole delinquent background, he's still very caring towards Nanako, and even a bit dense and gullible at times. Next up is the third in this trio of characters introduced at the start of the show, Amane Katagiri, the president of the literature club, who is 100% behind Nanako trying to fall in love with Eiji, or vice versa, in case you couldn't get that from the show already. Apparently she has other stuff that's mentioned throughout the show, like the highest ranking in academics within her year, working multiple part-time jobs, being a well-accomplished novelist. Although, the one thing that I remember from her is always dwelling on the fact that she doesn't have a boyfriend. Yeah, I think it's safe to say she's not my favorite character of the show. Next up is Koto Otsuki, Eiji's childhood friend 2 years older than him that attends the same high school, and president of the Modern U.S. Army Combative Club. Who makes these club names? She's not really shown in the show as much as the others, but she loves making fun of Eiji and Nanako, and it's even hinted a couple of times that she might have feelings for him, although that might be just a facade and trying to mess with him. Next character is Tao Hanakai, which, if you know anything about the name Tao, her basic personality trait is that she's a fortune teller. But at the same time, she can't really give accurate fortunes because she spells people's names wrong. Outside of that, the only thing that I remember is that she's kind of a Debbie Downer, and she's very blunt when it comes to a lot of stuff. Like Koto, she doesn't really get as much screen time as the main 3, which makes sense because in a cartoon somebody's got to take the back seat. Next out of the main cast is my favorite character of the show, Keno Yakobe, a very shy high school student who communicates through her drawings. And it's so hilarious because at the same time, she's somebody that would just sit in the corner and not bother anybody. But when it comes to her drawings, she just goes so outlandish, and I'll probably show some examples on screen because she doesn't really show much emotion outside of her drawings, outside of shyness, and it's just so adorable. Now of course there are other characters in the show, like Nanako's family, Eiji's younger sister, but really the main cast is all that I really need to explain. I think it's pretty safe to say that this show is more romance based than something like Hitoribochi, but at the same time the romance didn't really overshadow it for me. There were a couple of episodes that hinted about Eiji and Nanako in a relationship, but they don't really go anywhere with it. Heck, I think the manga might be still running, which might be why. The unfortunate part about this show is it was probably overlooked by a lot of people because, first of all, everybody is talking about One Punch Man Season 2 being a train wreck, Kimetsu no Yaiba being so great, and Attack on Titan, well, I haven't watched Attack on Titan, so I can't really say much about that. All I know is people are talking about it. But amidst the sea of all these other shows going on, sadly, Senryu Girl kinda got left by the wayside. Especially considering that even though it has 12 episodes, they're only 12 minutes long, which is good and bad. It's good that it's not that long, so people can just easily digest it. It'll only take a little over 2 hours, I think. No, 3 hours maybe. It won't take too long, I can guarantee you that. But at the same time, especially with the seasonal anime cycle, they have to decide what's worth their time and what's not worth their time. And 12 minutes might be something that they would just spend watching something else like Kimetsu no Yaiba. It's unfortunate, but that's how the anime cycle works. Really, there's nothing else for me to go over inside the story. The show is basically introducing one character each episode. Keno is introduced one episode, best episode ever. Tao is introduced another episode, and so on and so forth. There are other episodes where they're involved with outside of school actions, like one episode going to the beach, pool, something like that, and another episode them going through a test of courage because Nanako wants to see fireflies. It's not really one of those shows that has some huge plot twist that's gonna make you think, oh, I have to rethink of how I was watching these scenes earlier and go back and see them in a new light. It's like Hitoribochi in that it's heartwarming, but it's not really one of those things where the fact that Nanako doesn't talk isn't used and stated outright constantly. Where in Hitoribochi's case, a lot of the jokes rely on Hitoribochi being awkward, they don't really do that with Nanako. Honestly, a lot of the comedy just comes from the different interactions with the characters that are involved. But overall, one thing that I can take away from this show is the way that it handles itself. Like with Nanako, for example, Keno, for another example. They aren't really good with talking under normal conditions, so they communicate via haiku and drawing, which that is very interesting and very, very cool for people that are impressionable around the age where they're starting to grow up, not sure exactly how to talk to people. So this show is one saying, hey, see these characters on screen? They can't really communicate well just like you. And at the same time, they present it in a way that isn't condescending to the viewer. Not saying Hitoribochi does, but I can see where people would think that. But this is a very cute show, a very heartwarming show. And since I gave Hitoribochi a score, I guess I should give Senryu Girl a score as well. So I'll give it 8 out of 10. a little bit above Hitoribochi as far as animation, characters for me, but at the same time, this 8 out of 10 could change to a 7 out of 10 in the course of a week. But I think that is going to wrap up this episode involving Senryu Girl, and just like the last episode, have you watched Senryu Girl? Did you like it if you did? Have you not watched it? And if you haven't, are you going to? Did I convince you well enough to watch this show? Because honestly, if you only have a certain amount of time to watch one show and you had to choose between Hitoribochi and Senryu Girl, I'd probably pick Senryu Girl, just personally. I do like Hitoribochi more just for the memes, but at the same time, Senryu Girl is one that would appeal to a broader audience, at least in my view. But I got these two recorded, so I believe all that I have to worry about making reviews for now is One Punch Man Season 2, Bokuben, and Shield Hero. Shield Hero I'm going to be finishing up, well, I probably have already finished it up at this point. But I'm going to wait on reviewing Kimetsu no Yaiba because it's going to have 26 episodes and it doesn't make sense for me to review it halfway through the show. But stay tuned for the next episode, and until then, Momentai.
ちゃんも美化委員です。連れてきた。やだ。